and welcome. My name is Anja Lang and I'm really excited to be here on this summit, and I especially love the theme for this specific summit: inspiration, motivation to begin or to continue your yoga journey and the transformational process that yoga is, and tools that you can use throughout your life. And that's what I'm really passionate about, that this is something you can use throughout your life, and that yoga is something that is adaptable. It's not just one style, you have to do the same thing every single time you practice, because you change and nature changes around us. So we adapt our classes. Now, this is specifically really important for women because we have a very distinct cycle. We have our monthly cycle. We change if we become pregnant. We change during our postpartum period. We change again through menopause. And I think it's really important that we honor those changes. And not only that, Mother Nature changes. So how we approach our yoga practice and our life in the summer will probably be different from wintertime. So this is what I really want to share, really embracing our seasons and our cycles within ourselves, but also out in nature. And I'll share a little bit about my journey, just because this is a process, but this is not about me, this is about you, and I'm just using that as my experience to share with you. So do stay with me for this talk as I'll guide you through it, because these are action steps you can very easily take and transform how you're viewing your yoga practice and how you can adapt it. And that is absolutely fine. So at the end of the session, do stay with me. I will share some more information that you can take with you, some offers you can enjoy to get to know your body and your cycles a little bit better as well. So I want to introduce myself, not go on about it, but I do think it's probably nice for you to understand why I'm choosing to share this. My name is Anja Lang, and I started my yoga journey when I was around 20 years old. And it was just something I knew I wanted to do. I never liked sports, I was never active, but yoga was just something I really wanted to do. It wasn't so easy to find yoga classes 25 years ago, and I grew up in Denmark, so there weren't that many options. But I did it and I loved it. I found a class, it was just wonderful, I felt at home. I traveled to India, did even more yoga, and I knew this was something I was going to do and something that was going to be a big part of my life, and maybe even later in life I wanted to share it and teach it. But at 20 years old I didn't feel ready. So it did take another 10 years for me to do another yoga training, and this time I did the yoga teacher training because I had to teach. I just had to teach yoga. Because it's felt so natural to me to share this gift. And for me, I think yoga has been, in that time, just really supportive in my physical body, but certainly mentally and emotionally as well, and spiritually. So I did my teacher training course, and that was probably 15 years ago. And I started to teach straight away. When we do a teacher training course, it literally is the foundation, because you learn as you start to teach. And one of the things I started to notice was that my own practice and those in the class, it changed. Sometimes you come in and you teach a class, the energy is really high, sometimes it's really low. Sometimes there's agitation. So I knew I couldn't just teach the same thing. It had to be more intuitive and more in tune of the energy going on around us. The other thing I noticed was I had a lot of pregnant women wanting to do yoga with me. And I have to be honest, I didn't really know much about pregnancy. and certainly didn't feel safe to teach someone who was pregnant or who had recently given birth. And I think this is really important because pregnancy is not an illness, it's not a medical condition, and it's an absolutely natural part in the body, absolutely natural. But a lot of things change during pregnancy. So again, our yoga practice, the asana, the poses, they have to change. There have to be some kind of modifications and awareness around it. That's not to say that you cannot have a strong practice, but we need to know and understand how the body changes during pregnancy. So at that time I thought, okay, I want to share this. I want to understand what's going on. I'm a female body, so I want to understand what's actually going on in the female body and pregnancy process postpartum. So I was researching, I was studying, I did several teacher training courses in pre and postnatal yoga because I really wanted to get this. And I have to say I was shocked at how much I didn't know. Later on, I created my own teacher training courses. So I teach pregnancy teacher training courses for yoga teachers. And I've done that for quite a few years now. And again, I'm surprised as us yoga teachers not really knowing much about the female physiology or anatomy. So the average person probably know even less. But we'll talk about this in a minute. But how I really thought about the seasons and cycles, and this is another thing I will share with you, is through my studies as an Ayurvedic practitioner. If you don't know about Ayurveda, here is the super quick introduction. Ayurvedic medicine is the traditional medicine from India. It's still practiced in India alongside what we call Western medicine. But it is traditional, using herbs, body treatments. It's a holistic view on healthcare and lifestyle. Very similar to yoga. The philosophy, very similar to yoga. So when I started studying Ayurvedic medicine, the two of them came together, and my yoga practice made even more sense, because I had the perspective of Ayurvedic medicine. So I studied for 4 years full time at university in the UK. So I've been living in the UK for more than 20 something years. And I studied in India as well, the Ayurvedic practice. And in Ayurveda, we acknowledge the seasons. So we acknowledge that maybe what we eat is different in the summer from spring and autumn and winter. Our daily practice is different depending on the weather outside. And same thing in our yoga practice. Same thing when a woman is menstruating, pregnant or postpartum or during menopause. So we can apply that to our yoga practice. And this is simple principles that are profound. So Ayurveda is cyclical, just like the female anatomy. And I think what's interesting as well is the female anatomy, the monthly cycle and the lunar cycle is similar. And I have an ebook on that, which I will share with you at the end as well. But this is really important that we acknowledge that cyclical and seasonal practice in our bodies. Many yoga traditions can be very rigid, and it's like this is one sequence, and this is the sequence we practice every single time, or you have to push harder, or we have this specific alignment and you have to honor that alignment. And that simply isn't true. We are all unique beings, and we have to listen to our own inner wisdom, our own truth, our own bodies, to modify so it works for us. And I think a lot of the sequences that we use in yoga, like the Ashtanga Vinyasa sequence, is was at Mysore Palace, it's very gymnastic. And if you think of some of those alignment cues, they were great for the teenage boys that were practicing, because Indian teenage boys, their hips are like this. They are very narrow hips. The alignment with the feet, heel to healer, heel to arch, might work for them. But for, you know, a woman, maybe not so easy. Maybe that alignment with the feet will affect her pelvis in a not so good way. And really, yoga is that we want to heal ourselves. So let's think about the women, and this is our sex, the female body. So obviously you might identify differently, but we think about, in this talk, about the female body as a female anatomy and physiology. So our cycles. How much did we actually learn about our menstrual cycle before we had our first bleed? Now, what is your relationship to your cycle? And I'm asking this because a lot of us never really acknowledged our cyclical nature, except that it's really inconvenient. Or maybe if you practice yoga, you're told you're on your period, you shouldn't do inversions, and that's really annoying. Or you have a heavy bleed or pain, but you're annoyed that you can't do your strong practice because you just don't feel like it. So how should we honor that? Because I don't like the word should. But what we can acknowledge is that during our monthly cycle, when we count our cycle, from the first day of the bleed is day number 1, and then you just move on through whatever day you then ovulate, or, you know, very few people then have the next period on day number 28 or 29, but around that time maybe. So we actually are different during our cycle. The hormones changes throughout the month, and that can affect how we build muscles, how flexible we are, our energy levels. And, you know, this is natural. It's not that it's good or bad, it's just how it is for our bodies to function. Our hormones have that seasonal or cyclical shift. So there are other things influencing. If you're stressed, those hormones also have an effect. So what I find really, now that we talk more about our cycle, what we have seen is that some sports coaches have started to monitor the athlete's cyclical nature, because they can then accommodate the training according to her cycle, not the other way around. We are finally starting to acknowledge that we can use the strength of our cycle to enhance our practice. So let's do that. So we think of menstruation as we think of that as day number 1. From an Ayurvedic perspective, that downward movement of releasing the menstrual blood is like Vata dosha. So this is the energy or energetics, is moving down, is movement. When we are menstruating according to Ayurveda, it's a good time for us just to let the body do what it needs to do. It is actually a really good time to rest. It's okay to feel tired, because your body is in a transformative process. In Ayurvedic medicine, there is a cleansing process called Rakta Mokshana. So this is a blood cleansing process, and basically bloodletting. If there's a lot of heat in the system, sometimes that is released through bloodletting in Ayurvedic practices. Now we can say that in the female body, the menstruation is a bit like a natural raksha mokshana, so the bloodletting. And we think of it as a cleansing process. Now, I want to just make sure that cleansing does not mean that you've been dirty or that menstruation is dirty. Not at all. It's a really powerful process. And again, it's a natural process. It's something that we need to do. And our hormones are accommodating specifically for this process. It's an amazing thing our bodies can do. But as it is, this process is a good time to rest and relax. The energy of vata, or the movement of prana, or energy in the body, is moving out and down. This is the reason why some yoga teachers say don't do inversions during your period. So don't do handstands, hit stands, shoulder stands during your period, because the natural flow is moving out and down. There is no other medical reason not to do it. There's not going to be more reverse bleeding if you do that. So this is something that you have to check in with yourself. What does the body want? What does the head want, or the ego want? And this is about you checking in what feels right for you at that specific time. When we do inversions, we're also very often using the deep core, including the pelvic floor. So if we lift the energy up through the pelvic floor, we are also obstructing that downward movement of flow. So this is just something, to think about. I can talk a lot more about this, and I do that as well. But for this talk, I'll leave it with that. So that's that vata energy. So feel free to do yin yoga, relaxing yoga, just enjoying to take time off your practice. But listen to your body. I think this is, in Ayurveda, that's it. You listen to how your body feels. Now, once our period has stopped, or just towards the end of it, our endometrium starts to build up again. So there is a building energy. In Ayurveda, that's that kapha energy. Kapha dosha is the earth and water element, and it's building up. It's strong, it has stamina, it has strength, and it's kind of slow and steady. So this basically means that this follicular phase during your cycle, when you're moving towards your ovulation, is a great time to build up muscle strength. So again, we can really utilize this time to do more strength practice. You have the stamina, you have the steadiness to do maybe a stronger practice again. So again, we can use this to our support. Now, if you're on the fertility journey, this is really a time you can use that building up to support that. So you don't want to have a lot of fire in your practice, but you want the stability and structure and that kind of nurturing through the practice. But you can certainly do the strong practices here and build up muscle if that's what you want to do. And that really continues to ovulation. The ovulation time, this is where most of us feel vibrant, we feel beautiful, we feel wonderful, we can do everything. It's obviously because it's a time we are fertile, so we do want to be attractive. That's again just nature. It's probably the time where maybe we're a bit more assertive or flirty. And again, it's natural. So this is again that time you still have that kapha building up, you have the strength, but you also have a bit of pitta dosha. Pitta is the fire. So we have that combined, which is a really nice combination to express oneself, to do something fun. So again, a strong creative yoga practice is perfect. If you're trying out a new pose, a new arm balance, maybe this is that time you want to do it. Again, if you're on the fertility journey, this is the time you're ovulating, the time you could be pregnant. So you might just want to embrace that as that open, sensuous, fluid practice. So we again come back to, what is my body needing this moment? Do I need to be that sensuous, fluid, creative yoga practice? Or do I want that strong, creative practice? So after ovulation has happened, we come into the luteal phase. So this is where we, if we haven't been fertilized, then we have that fire building up again towards better time again. So the fire of determination, of strength and power, of releasing. Now, Pitta dosha can be super sharp, focused, a bit of heat to get things done. Too much Pitta, then we can become angry, irritated, hot and bothered. And that might sound like premenstrual tension. So I'm sure a lot of us have a lot of Pitta. And for most of us, Pitta dosha is, that fire is acknowledged in our society. You know, ambition, what are you going to do? Even in our yoga practice, Pitta dosha, or the fire, is embraced. You know, there are so many hot yoga studios creating even more heat through the practice of strong poses. Now, fire and Pitta dosha is fantastic. It has that sharpness. It gets things done. It's a fire that can transform, but the fire can also burn out. We can get a burnout. Our tissues can burn out. We can have too much heat. And that can be that anger and PMT, or premenstrual syndrome, or whatever you want to call excess irritation. I do want to acknowledge when you are emotional or angry or irritated, it is your true feelings. And probably if you start to journal around your cycle, you might just notice that and then go, okay, so that's how I feel. What's going on in the rest of the time? Like when I'm ovulating, or the time before ovulating, I can do everything. I have time for everything. Maybe that everything shouldn't be scheduled in when I'm premenstrual. Or maybe I'm actually doing a little bit too much. So Pitta sharp transformation, the transformational fire. So it is quite interesting, and it can be where we're pushing ourselves too much. When we work with the doshas like this, we can relate that back to our hormones as well. For me, the Ayurvedic terms make sense, but we can talk about hormones as well. So because of the hormonal changes, there are times when your body actually becomes more stretchy. This sounds fabulous, but it also means that your ligaments can overstretch and potential injuries can happen. So now here's a little bit of a homework for you to practice with your yoga practice or other exercise. If you know what day of your cycle you're on, just write that day. So say you had your period, your first day of your period started 5 days ago, then you're on day 5. Just make little notes of how you feel, what kind of yoga practice you feel like, whether you're energized or lazy, whether you feel really tight in your body or super flexible. You'll start to see there's a pattern. And these are, for me, from the Ayurvedic perspective, the doshas are shifting. But hormonally, we are also changing. So accommodate your practice accordingly, rather than push your practice through when something else could actually be more appropriate and support you even better. So another thing you can just do while we're sitting here is just to rest your hands on your lower belly, just above your pubic bone. So really lower down, be beneath your belly button and above your pubic bones. And maybe just close the eyes and you rest your hands on the lower belly. If you breathe really deeply, just feel that space. You can imagine the hand just resting over your womb or your uterus. You can even feel the waves of the breath. Just a few more breaths. And staying with the eyes closed if it's comfortable. Just notice, how does the womb feel this moment? Does it feel full, tired? Is there any sort of energy or connection? There might not be anything, but it's just that awareness of the energy at the womb. Just take a deep breath in and deep breath out. Just do that again. Deep inhale, complete exhale. Beautiful. So taking time to connect to your pelvis, to your womb, to your cycle, can give you so much wisdom and insight. It can transform how your yoga practices, but your lifestyle as well, and really enhance it. Now I do want to move on to some other cycles in a woman's life, or in the female body. And we'll go back to the cyclical again, so everyone can kind of join in. When I mentioned when I started teaching, I certainly got lots of inquiries from pregnant women. And when I then started to study and did several teacher training courses, there were teacher training courses where basically a woman was hardly allowed to do anything during her pregnancy. And other sessions I went to, the practice was really strong, stronger than probably what my usual regular students would find a little intense. And that's why in the end I decided to create my own pregnancy teacher training courses to get that balance of the people that I work with. And pregnancy and postnatal yoga was some of the busiest classes I had at one point. Most of my classes and most of my privates were pregnant or postnatal women. So what I find challenging is, and I really want you to consider this, if you're pregnant or if you're a yoga teacher and a pregnant student comes to you, it's a pregnant person's body, and they really have to listen to what feels right for them, but the body, not the mind. And as a teacher, you have to understand what's happening in a pregnant body. What I've heard is either someone who's pregnant is not allowed to do anything, hardly, or it's just listen to your body. And I have problems with the listening to the body. Most of us don't listen to our bodies, we listen to our ego, because that's kind of what drives us. And very often yoga classes are too fast to just kind of own in and just go into your own body. And listening to the body is interesting, because in pregnancy, like certain times in your monthly cycle, there's a hormone called relaxin that peaks. So in pregnancy, it increases a lot. That means that hormone helps the body to expand to accommodate for the pregnancy and for the birth. That's absolutely wonderful and absolutely how it should be. But it does mean that some of the joints in the whole body can overstretch. So it feels nice to stretch, and I've seen, on yoga posts where really experienced wonderful yoginis are pregnant. It's like, oh, I've never been able to stretch so much. But you are overstretching the ligaments. Same thing can happen postpartum. We overstretch, and it's really difficult to heal. You might not feel it at the time. You might feel it after giving birth. Maybe these are things that will only come into play post-menopause. So if you truly can listen to your body and guidance from that, please do. We'll always listen to your body, but also be a bit conservative with the overstretching. Your body is your responsibility, but the teacher who invites in a pregnant person into a class also have a responsibility. So what are the expectations? You know, again, it's that Pitta society where we do things all the time. We should look like this. We see all these amazing yoginis on Instagram doing absolutely fantastic advanced poses during their pregnancy. And that might be perfect for them, but it doesn't mean that it's perfect for us. So again, we have to really look inside. We are building a whole new human being, or maybe several human beings, a new organ, the placenta. So we want to build up and create space. Pregnancy is not an illness, it's not a disease, it's not a medical condition, it is natural process, and women can absolutely stay active and strong during this time. Now, I live in the UK, and the National Health Service generally says, you know, a woman can continue the sports exercises she's currently doing during pregnancy with modifications and guidance of an educated teacher or instructor. The things that she needs to be aware of is things like contact sports, where maybe she'll get kicked in the stomach, or if she's horse riding, maybe she'll fall off the horse. But most classes, fine. So for yoga, absolutely fine, but go to a pregnancy class or find a teacher that is experienced in prenatal yoga, so understanding the pregnant body. And pregnancy yoga is absolutely amazing, and I'm so grateful that I've been able to share pregnancy yoga with so many women and seeing them bloom. You know, I'm sometimes the first one who knows they're pregnant, which is really incredible. And seeing that journey is fantastic, and then seeing the babies afterwards. And now I get photos of, you know, teenagers. It's really weird that that's someone that I taught in the womb, because for me they're always babies. So in pregnancy, this is a beautiful practice. There's so many studies about pregnancy yoga and the effect physically, but also on our mental and emotional space. So really embrace the pregnancy yoga, because it is very powerful for anxiety, for depression, for anxiety around birth. It helps potentially for birth positioning, for the pelvic floor. And again, this is, you know, one of my passions is the pelvic floor, because again, most of us were never taught about the pelvic floor, just like we weren't taught about our cycles. And this is something that should absolutely be talked about in pregnancy and postnatal classes, but we should all know about it, even if we never want to become pregnant. If we gave birth 30 years ago, pelvic floors are absolutely incredible. And I will just show, because I do love the pelvis. So this is the pelvis. So you can kind of imagine, you know, this is the uterus sitting here, non-pregnant, but with a pregnant uterus, there's a lot of pressure on the pelvic floor. So really understanding the pelvic floor muscles like everywhere else on the body. So why are we not paying attention to the pelvic floor when we practice our yoga? How it stabilizes. A lot of women have hip pain, where the thigh bone is in the hip socket. A lot of pregnant women and postnatal women have sacroiliac joint pain here. So again, that alignment is different in pregnancy than it is in the rest of the time, because we need to support the pregnant pelvis for stability and strength, but also flexibility for birth. Pelvic girdle pain is so common, and again, that thing about overstretching. So yeah, pain in the hips, in the pubic symphysis, in the hips and the sacroiliac joint, very common during pregnancy, and it is something we need to be mindful of. So we have to work with the strength part as well as the stretchiness. And again, for all of us, we need to know this. So pregnancy, practice until the day you give birth. Practice yoga during labor. Move the body. Allow your, again, connecting to yourself, to allow the body to move so it becomes natural. So I think some of the things that I've heard most about in prenatal yoga from people practicing with me is how much it has helped during their birth and their recovery. It's often the time during the week that they can just focus on themselves, that they don't have to think about work or other children or family. It gives them a break where they can be in their own body and connect to how they feel. And this is powerful for everyone, but especially something so transformative as pregnancy. This will relate on to postnatal recovery, because how we feel during pregnancy and how we navigate through our birth, whether we have vaginal birth, C-section birth, it's all connected. How you were before becoming pregnant, during pregnancy, and then how it ends up during postnatal. A bit like when we had our periods, the postpartum space in Ayurveda is a time of rest, like absolute rest, doing nothing. Let other people cook and clean for you. All you need to do is just lie there, feed your babies, have oil massage. Oil massage, so important anytime in our lives, but specifically postnatal from an Ayurvedic perspective. And again, not to go too much into details because we can do that another time, and certainly, send me messages and I can share some more information on it. But again, we have so much in our society that we should look a certain way very soon after birth, and it puts a lot of pressure. So one of the things we want to work on the most is our abdomen. We start to do sit-ups. We start to basically do compression on the abdominal organs, or the internal abdominals. And that helps, or that will start to push out. So during pregnancy, if you ever sat up in a funny way and you had a bit of a dome in the abdomen, that ligament that's in the middle is stretching. Same thing will happen during postpartum. So we have to really be very gentle as we work from the inside out during our postpartum recovery. So it's a lot of breathing, it's a lot of working with the pelvic floor, and through the pelvic floor we start to connect to our deep core muscles. These are the muscles that support us. They can be too tight as well, so we don't want too tight muscles. We want strength and flexibility, but also being able to relax them completely. So again, working with that, for that stability and strength, to get grounded and feel supported. And that's so important during postpartum, that you feel supported, not just from your environment, but inside your body. And the pelvic floor and your roots are really part of that. Again, during this time is a big transformative time in our lives, and then after that eventually we go back to our cyclical nature again. We have our periods, we have ovulation, we have periods again, and then suddenly that starts to shift. So the hormones are changing completely, and in Ayurveda, Pitta dosha changes Vata dosha. Vata is about change, and as we grow older, Vata dosha starts to increase. Vata dosha is the element of air and wind, and you can imagine air and wind dries us up and out. It's destabilizing. So as we grow older and wiser, and we move towards our wisdom years and through menopause, we still have to stay strong. So yoga practice is fantastic for that, but absolutely amazing for any anxiety and stress, because stress hormones have a detrimental or certainly can affect our hormones in a negative way. And that has an escalating effect. So really finding ways to soothe our nervous system through our yoga practice, maybe before menopause or during even perimenopause, having that nature of writing down our menstrual cycle every day, just writing down how do you feel, and start to work with our cycle rather than against it can help. From an Ayurvedic perspective, when we grow wiser into this Vata age, we want a practice that's nourishing us, that's building up, that's create nourishment and strength and support. So that kind of Yin style yoga is fantastic, but we still want a bit of strength and support as well. So again, how do you feel about transitioning into this wise woman? What positive aspects do we have of the wise woman today? You know, how can we look forward to those changes that's absolutely natural and cyclical and seasonal? So what I want you to take away with this was really just the internal cycles, but we have external cycles. We have the actual seasons outside. We have the moon cycle. And I wrote a little ebook about the moon cycles. We say in Ayurveda that our menstrual cycle works with the moon cycles, but even if you're not cycling, the moon cycles have an effect on us. So a lot of my, I'll share this as well in the notes, but if you go to yogaembodiedonline.com/ebook, that has information about those lunar cycles and living with the lunar cycles. And I have one specifically about the pelvic floor. So that's yogaembodiedonline.com/pelvic floor. If you press on either one, you can get both of these little PDFs. But what I'd love to invite you to do is to start to notice your cycles, track your cycle. So day 1 is the first day you're bleeding if you are menstruating, or alternatively you can start this on the new moon, and you just write how you feel. How's your yoga practice? Energized, strong, or you basically just want to lie down on the floor? Just notice it. And take that moment, just rest your hands on your womb. So I'll just take the pelvis up again. The womb is low. Here's your pubic bone. Your womb is in here. It does change. It changed during your cycle. It shifts a little bit. But hand just on the womb, over the womb, and just closing the eyes, connecting to the womb, even connecting to the muscles of the pelvic floor as you breathe. Just noticing, no judgment, nothing you need to do, just connecting. So those are the 2 things I love for you to do. Just see how it feels. How does your yoga practice change? Or do you want to change anything around it? These are things I talk about a lot. So as I said, I already do pregnancy teacher training courses. I do yoga classes. I have online programs as well. So on yogaembodiedonline.com, there are some online courses, both on the pelvic floor and the menstrual cycle. And there is a discount code as well at the minute. You can go to my Facebook group. My Facebook page is Anja Yoga, Anja's ANJA. But the Facebook group is Sacred Self-Care Alchemy. Sacred Self-Care Alchemy. That's a Facebook group, and I have yoga classes in there. I have talks about the pelvic floor, talks about our cycles and Ayurveda. So it's a more of an interactive group. So online classes, live classes are on there as well. So I invite you to join me there as well. And say hello on Instagram. Again, Anja_Yogini. Anja ANJA _Yogini. YOGINI. So if you have any questions, go to our social media, so my Facebook page or group, my Instagram account, and just say hello, how you are, and Let me know how you feel about connecting with your cycle and your cyclical nature, the seasons, and how that affects your yoga practice. Or if you're unsure, again, just send me a message and I'll have some resources, I'm sure. I'll try to find some. So yeah, I think that's it. So thank you so much for your time, and I'm really grateful that you're here on this transformative journey. It is very transformative, and I think when you start to work with the cycles and the seasons, it can have a really wonderful healing impact on your life. So yogaembodiedonline.com, that's my online stuff, but yogaembodied.com is my kind of main website, so contact me there. And sign up for the little PDFs. So the PDF either on the pelvic floor, so 5 facts that every woman should know about her pelvic floor, even if you don't have children. And the other one is about lunar living, so connecting with the lunar cycles, so the actual moon cycles, that you can then connect to your menstrual cycle as well. If you're not menstruating, you work with the actual moon. So thank you so much. Enjoy all the other talks on the summit, and do share your experiences. Share in the comments and on the website. Thank you for watching.